What is up, guys? Mcdoubles back here with a brand new video. In my last video, you had to get 500 likes to guarantee a new Koa video, which I did get. I slammed it, and I really appreciate you guys for that. And I put up a poll. You guys voted for the Reaper in this video, which is something we played a little bit on stream the other day when, you know, Koa new talents just came out. But we're going to jump on it again, level quite a bit, check out all the specs, give my take on it. I hope you guys enjoy. It's a fun one, so let's jump right in. Greetings, my friends. It's me. You might know me as Mcdoubles. We are here today playing... Crap, I'm going to fall in the water, aren't I? We're going to be playing a Reaper, and we're going to be doing this because you guys voted for it, as I told you. Now, I've been leveling this guy for a bit. I'm currently level 43, and the max level is 50 right now, of course. I do want to show you guys what I've experienced so far with all three specs. I'll talk a little bit about all of them as well, and then what I'd like to do is retest them live with you guys and just give my take on what I've experienced and show you guys some gameplay. Now, before we do any of that, let me just give you guys a quick basic idea of what's going on with the Reaper class. Alright guys, so first of all, if we go to the Reaper class and we go and we see exactly what they want to tell us about it, here is what it is. It is a melee damage dealer and a tank. Primary resource being mana, secondary resource being souls, and we're looking at that in a moment as well. The max amount of armor you can use is mail armor, and this is what they say it's about. You sustain yourself by stealing the life from your foes, you can slip into the realm of the dead, you can isolate enemies by pulling them into the realm of the dead alongside you, and you can bolster your ghastly form, enhancing your lifesteal and allowing you to defend your allies from harm. Now, it says down here, Reapers are scythe-wielding knights, possessed by a dark and hungry spirit. They excel at stealing life from enemies and using their own health to unleash devastating attacks. Reapers can focus on a life-stealing bruiser playstyle or protect allies from harm as an effective tank by withering enemies and sustaining immense punishment without pain. They're also, by the way, 2H parry tanks. It also says, some Reapers take the path of the Wraith, entering the realm of the dead to sneak around unnoticed with dual scythes and isolating enemies by pulling them into the realm of the dead to quickly finish them. It's really, really cool, and basically what you're going to end up getting is this, guys. You have a 2H just DPS spec. It's more for PvE, but I'm assuming it can also be used for PvP. Then you have a dual-wielding, what they call scythe spec, but you can also use like swords and stuff. That's a PvP spec from what I've seen. And then we have the tank spec, and I'll tell you guys right now, the tank spec is actually my favorite spec. It's the first spec so far I've played that was a non-DPS spec. That was my favorite, and so I'm really excited to show this to you guys. I think thematically, they've nailed it on so many levels, it's not even funny. So, let's get on to my character. Alright guys, you already know what's about to go down. I need to get just 500 likes, just a measly 500 likes on this video for me to continue the Koa series, and as far as I keep getting these likes, I will do it. That's how it's going to be, and you will see a video very, very soon. So, if you want to see another Conquest of Azeroth class showcasey video, all you gotta do is make sure this video makes it to 500 likes. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Okay, so the very first tree I want to show you guys is going to be the soul tree, and let's talk about some of the stuff you get with this tree, and then I'll show you guys some BG clips where I actually play it out and do really, really well, and I think it's a very awesome spec. We're also going to talk about whether or not this is actually more of a everyman spec, or if it has a specific niche. Hint, hint, it has a specific niche. So, I think what confuses me the most about this spec is that it says it uses intellect, which admittedly, even at the times of the clips I'll show you guys where I dominated, I didn't know that. I was using agi stuff. But it says skulk around in the realm of death as a wraith, striking down enemies by surprise with powerful spectral attacks. So, some example abilities. Soul Reaper. Whenever an enemy you have recently damaged dies, you slip into basically stealth mode for 4 seconds and regenerate health. And then you have Dirge, which you use all the time. Consume 2% max health, 8-second cooldown. You strike an enemy with 100% main hand damage and 100% offhand weapon damage, but it counts as shadow damage and generates a soul fragment. More on that in a bit. And then we have Shift. It requires what they call Underwalk or Realm of Darkness, and you shift your ghostly form up 8 yards forward in the direction that you're facing. Just so you know, Underwalk is basically stealth mode for the Reaper, and Realm of Darkness is the same concept, but acquired in a different way. Now, you'll see you actually do start with the Dirge ability, and the next thing you get is the Shift ability, and then you get the Death Comes ability, which removes the movement speed reduction of Underwalk, and of course, Underwalk is once again a stealth ability. Now, one of the more important things I feel like I should start off with is actually showing you guys some stuff, specifically the Underwalk. So, what I want to do is I'm going to equip 2 one-handed weapons, because you have to be one-handed only dual wield to make this spec work, and then I'll show you Underwalk, which makes everything look like if you were dead, but you're actually in stealth mode, okay? So, that talent removed the movement speed penalty, because just like normal stealth, it has a movement speed penalty. It does last until you turn it off or you break it. It's the same as OG stealth, but it's unique to the Reaper. I think only the Rune Master naturally goes into stealth, other than the Reaper, so that's pretty interesting. We didn't check out that version of the spec when we showed Rune Master. We did in the very first video I did, though. But yeah, that's something to think about. Now, Spectre Stride is something we'll end up playing with, by the way, and this is something that can only be used while in Underwalk, because just like other stealth abilities that rogues would have, these can typically only be used while stealthed. Just like the rogue, though, we'll have some talents that allow the use of stealth abilities outside of stealth. What I'm doing is leaving the city real quick so you can actually see what Spectre Stride actually looks like. So it says send a Spectre at an enemy target on a 5-second cooldown, teleporting you to their location and doing damage over 12 seconds. So we pick a cow and we say boom! And we're out of Underwalk for a second, and the cow dies a horrible death. Now, before I go back to the talents, I just want to say right now, because we're doing this video a little bit different, I've already leveled up a lot, and I'm trying to give you guys some retrospective of what's going on. Because I was enjoying this so much, I honestly didn't commentate as much while I was doing it. But Reap is the first ability you naturally get. This is something you saw if you watched my stream, and that's another good reason why I didn't actually start telling you guys about everything the way I normally do, because we leveled to like level 21 on my stream, so I was already really far ahead. But Reap is just 50% weapon damage that restores your health and harvests a soul fragment. Now, soul fragments are right here. You can see you need 3 actually soul fragments to create a reaped soul, and so that's how that works. So if I reap this guy, you see I get nothing, right? I still have 0 reaped souls. If I reap this rabbit, I get nothing. But you can actually see when I reap the spider, I actually did end up getting a reaped soul. So there's that. Also, while killing things that give experience or honor with certain specs, you get reaped souls. Lots of things give you soul fragments, and so it's just another mechanic to think about when using certain abilities, right? By the way, you also get a buff with this guy. 10% stamina with this class. It's called Crimson Pack. You also get Soul Harvester, right? Increasing your spell power by 15% of your attack power and granting you spell hit rating equal to 20% of your agility. It also says enemies that die within 3 seconds of being damaged give you a reaped soul. That's what I was talking about. And increase your mana regen, as well as the mana regen of your allies. That's something to think about as well. Reap is going to be something you use a lot, and it also seems to be that depending on whether you use a 2H or dual wield, different things will occur. If you look on the top right, first of all, I've got the Wraith right here. I'm using dual weapons, and it says your Reap ability has a shorter cooldown and delivers an offhand strike as well as a main hand strike, so you'll actually hit with both weapons, and that's good because Reap would be pretty awful if it was 50% of one single 1H weapon. So it's almost like a Storm Strike, a little weaker theoretically, but it heals you as well. Harvest soul fragments. Now, Dirge is an ability I just got, as you guys know, and I talked to you guys about it, and so let's just use this real quick. Pretty cool animation. This is the normal Reap, by the way. It doesn't really have much of an animation to it, but that's what you would expect. But this is the Dirge one more time. So I love the teal the most. That's why I built my guy around that teal concept. I love this a lot. And by the way, this is what you look like when you have 3 reaped souls. You get this purple animation on you. I personally think this is absolutely ugly. I actually talked to Liquid about it. I simply asked his opinion on it, and he was already on the same page as me too. What he wants to end up doing, and you tell me if you disagree, is that this animation will pop up when you hit 3 reaped souls, but it won't just be there all the time. Because to me, it's all over the place. You know, I feel clunky. You guys know from my transmog decisions that even the wings I have right now, the tendrils rather, it's almost too much to me, but it matches too well, right? I don't like a lot of clutter, so when classes force a lot of visual clutter on me, it does bother me. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, so this won't be there forever. It'll just pop up with this purple animation when you actually reach 3 rather than staying up all the time, and I think that's better, cleaner, and more polished myself. So Dirge is pretty strong, so you're using the Dirge, right? You're using the Reap. You have another ability we saw when I streamed, Shudder's Scythe. Back in my original Reaper video, this was overpowered, and it was literally crazy good. What it does, though, is on a 30-second cooldown, so it's a big cooldown. You deliver 5 swift attacks with both weapons in this case, which is nice. Every strike does 25% weapon damage and restores 1% max health. However, if you have Soul Infusion, you do 10 strikes over 1 second instead. Soul Infusion effects are active, it says, when you have 3 reaped souls. So look at it like combo points that force you to have the maximum amount every time to get the effect. It consumes the souls as well. So sometimes you'll consume 1 soul with certain abilities, or sometimes you'll have the Soul Infusion effect, which requires you to consume 3. So I do actually have 3 right now, so let's go ahead and just kill this Defias Cut Purse with it. This is one of the better animations. Look at that. I mean, that's just really well done, to be honest. Some of these animations, even back then, even though this has been around for a while, it just kind of blows my mind that they created that in World of Warcraft at all. This is something you can't sleep on. Like, most of these dudes on the alpha are just trying to min-max the classes, but really the big thing is, like, kind of being in amazement over the art style, over the SFX, the VFX, all of this jazz, the sound effects. It's all so nice. And, of course, giving your take on how to make that better, because I do feel like that's what's going to make this feel real. That's what's going to make it feel polished and clean and like a real game. Anyway, we have another ability. It's a little joke ability. It's Farsight, basically. It's called Spectral Eye. So you can see I can literally use it like a Farsight right now. And I can go all the way over here to the top of the Stormwind Gate, and I'm actually in spectral form, little dead boy form again, and I can look at everything, and then I can get out of that, and that's no big deal, but I do love that they're doing abilities like that. Now, we have this ability. Let's go back into Underwalk form, which is right here in the Domination tree, and I have this ability, Shift. Now, Shift is a weirdie, actually. You can see on the bottom right, you shift your ghostly form up to 8 yards forward in the direction that you're facing. 8 yards is not a lot, but it has no cost to it, and it can just keep being used. So I'm literally just jumping a little bit, but it's like if I was a wraith, literally, and I'm just literally zooming at a quicker pace than most people. And it does work well for PvP. And that's what I meant by niche applicability, by the way. I was even talking to Liquid about this, and he made it clear that he, like, actually thinks this is true as well. So it's coming from a top-down point of view is what I'm trying to say. The designers are doing this on purpose, but this is a PvP spec. So it's kind of like how in old classic WoW, you didn't raid and sub, right? Subtlety almost had no PvE applicability at any point until, like, Legion or something like that, if I recall correctly. Like, it took a long time to make subtlety relevance in PvE, and nobody cared, because when you do it tastefully, especially on a spec with more than one DPS spec, right? I think that's fine. So this is more of a PvP spec, and it has lots of really unique ways to PvP, and it's a stealth spec, so that makes a lot of sense as well. Now, that's not to say that this will never be good in PvE, it's just to say that you should expect this to be better in PvP for sure. But anyway, that is what Shift does. We also have Murder. Murder is just a 10-second cooldown, consumes 1 Reap Soul and 10% max health ranged ability that does shadow damage, and it seems to be good because there are some talents with it that let it restore your mana as well. Although right now I have like no mana cost on my spells, I feel like he's gonna have to figure out how to, you know, apply more mana cost to my spells, because right now I never run out of mana or care about it. It's actually a pretty good ability, and I believe lots of Reapers that are trying to min-max this stuff are using Murder on cooldown from some of them that I've talked to. So now, is that with the Soul spec or just with the Harvest spec to use it on cooldown? That's something to figure out for me personally, right? But it's a good ability. Okay, I did just want to use it one more time to show it to you guys, so here it is. Really good animation, and when you play tank, by the way, you can make it hit more than one target. So, still looking at the Soul spec now that we got an idea of what's going on. I want to show you guys some other cool abilities you end up getting, right? So I get Wailing Soul and Soul Shock. So Soul Shock is incapacitate, right? It regenerates the health of the target you put it on, though, really quick. Think of it like Polymorph. And if you have Soul Infusion, it's actually instant cast. Otherwise, it's a 2-second cast. So we'll show that. And then we have Wailing Soul, very unique ability. You summon a Wailing Soul on a 1-minute cooldown, only for 10 seconds. You have direct control over it. The soul can see stealthed enemies, and if you run into somebody with it, it'll stun them and do massive shadow damage. You can actually use it while you're stealthed, by the way, but if you do, and you break it, it will take you out of stealth mode. So I can show you guys both of these real quick on some mobs, and this is really, really cool, guys. I'm actually very impressed by a lot of this stuff, but this is going to be the Soul Shock. Also, by the way, can be used while in Underwalk, and so you'll see some of that in my PvP clips. Soul Shock, so there's the incapacitate effect. Into the Underwalk, clicking out of the spell book, why not, lol. And then I go for the Wailing Soul. You can see I'm a soul now, I'm controlling it. I run up to the bandit, boom! 153, and he's stunned. So that's how that works. We'll go for a dirge right here. Okay, he's dead. Now, another ability you're going to end up getting with both the Harvest and I guess the Soul spec as well is Desolate. This is just 100% weapon damage plus 2 to 3, but it consumes 6% max health when you use it, and it harvests a soul fragment as well. However, it has no cooldown, whereas Reap has a cooldown typically with the Harvest spec. So it might be that Desolate's not used with the Soul spec, but obviously used with the Harvest spec. Here's the problem. As you can see, if I take the next 2 talents in the tree, I'm forced to take the Desolate or what they call the Dreadwake. We'll get more to this when we play the tank. This might be good if you could play Soul PvE, because this is actually just AoE. But at the same time, you can get this ability if you go for the Desolate, which increases all your physical damage dealt by 3%, and it just seems to work a lot better. So I've already talked to Liquid about this. Some of you guys told me that you wanted me to talk about this, but they're currently still in a situation where with some classes, you're forced to take talents that don't even make any sense. In fact, as the tank, I'm also forced to take the Desolate, and you might say, why? Well, first of all, I don't need Dirge as a tank because it's 2H parry tank, and that's a one-handed ability, right? But second of all, this not only increases physical damage dealt by 3%, but it increases all healing I receive by 5%, which is a wonderful little passive for a tank. So he's going to end up switching the Desolate around, I believe. Anyway, we also got Withering Touch, by the way. That's a 25-second cooldown melee range interrupt. That's pretty good. We can also get Possess. I can possess an enemy for 1.5 seconds. It makes me immune to physical attacks. I kind of go inside them, right? I do damage. Then I come out of them after 1.5 seconds. I do more shadow damage, but more importantly, perhaps, it generates a Reaped Soul immediately. So we'll look at that real quick. I've also got an ability I can get with all the specs called Limbo, right? Rip out of my mortal shell for 5 seconds. Can only be used at execute range, by the way. So if I'm at 35% max health, I can use this. Otherwise, I cannot. And what it does is it instantly restores about 20% of my max health, but it makes me immune to all harmful effects. You could say dots, right? So that's pretty cool as well. You're just not going to die. It's like an on-use cheat death. You've also got Ghost Claw. This is going to be a good slow, actually. It chills an enemy, stealing their movement speed, 40% of it for 10 seconds. The implication there being you get 40%, they lose 40%. That's way more powerful than a normal slow. It also says whenever you kill an enemy, the cooldown of the ability resets. You're already seeing that we're not even in the soul tree yet, and we've already got a lot of PvP applicability with the Reaper class in totality, and I think it's going to be a very strong PvP class. In fact, right now, it is considered a very strong PvP class, especially while leveling, where you're going to be one-shotting people literally the entire time. Now, we've got various passives that are important for sure, but we want to go over other stuff right now. We've got Ghastly Screech, by the way. This is an AoE silence effect on a 45-second cooldown that at the end of the silence will blow up and do damage. I personally really like this on my tank. I think silence effects are obviously quite good on tanks, and that's why people like using, for example, Avenger's Shield with the silence on prop pally. It's just so nice and good quality of life for rounding up all the mobs and getting them together on top of you, but it's actually pretty good at PvP as well, and just in general for DPS specs. So I'm looking for on-use abilities to show you guys right now. And it looks like we're just about done. Now, this is a pretty cool passive. I'll just talk about this real quick. I got attacked by a spider. Anyway, it passively allows me to see invisible enemies, but not stealth enemies. And it reduces the duration of fear effects on me or nearby allies by 40%. This is a really, once again, super powerful PvP class, and it just can't be slept on. Now, how some of these abilities look, by the way. This is the Withering Touch. Once again, you have to be in melee range, so there you go. And there are going to be some other talents for that. One of them, for example, is quite good in this tree. It reduces all damage the target you use it on does by 90% when you use it on them. It's only 3 seconds, but that's still super powerful. Once again, even for PvP, if you nail that at the right time, you don't even necessarily have to care if you interrupt them, you know? If you just want 90% reduced damage at that moment, you know? So there's going to be a lot of, like, a high skill cap, I'll just say, with this class. Ghastly Screech, by the way, the AoE silence looks really good as well. Ghost Claw, so there you go. So I run really fast, that guy goes really slow, and I look a little bit more spectre-y at the same time, so I really like that. Now, I obviously can't show you guys Limbo, because I have to be on, like, a near-death scenario. Maybe I'll reduce my health real quick. This is Possess, though. So I am inside them theoretically in that moment, and then I do big damage, right? It keeps me there in like a specter form. Let's see if somebody's outside storming that can nearly kill me so I can try out the Limbo. Now, as I look for somebody, I really want you guys to look at these BG clips. Actually, it's me playing the soul spec in totality, but at a low level. You can see I literally will go up on somebody, and there's actually going to be a really cool ability. In fact, I'll put it up on the screen right now. It's called Wraith Blade. It's basically literally the first ability you get in the soul spec, and what's important about this ability is that it absolutely pumps, doing 200% offhand weapon damage from behind, plus shadow damage, and it ignores any armor or invulnerability effects like a Chaos Bolt, and generates a Reaped Soul on a 40-second cooldown. Plus, just killing somebody resets the effect. Now, you can see what I would essentially end up doing is ganking my targets, often by starting with a Soul Shock to prevent them from moving. I would go in there with another ability I'll put up on the screen right now that is called Reeve. Reeve is something I was using on cooldown, but it also just straight up slows my target by 50%, and if I have Soul Infusion, it does even more damage over time, over 12 seconds specifically, and my opponents would die really fast. Not only that, but I was actually able to put them into the underworld with me, utilizing various soul abilities, which means nobody else can see us, it's just me and you. Are you trapped in here with me, or am I trapped in here with you? Well, typically, they were trapped in here with me, and they died horrible deaths, and so this was actually super fun to play. It's literally, though, a ganking sub-rogue stealth spec. It just has its own Reaper twist to it that I actually think is a lot cooler, to be completely honest with you. It's an uber powerful PvP spec with an uber powerful amount of damage. It hyper focuses on the dual wield aspect, is very, very neat. We'll see if it ends up being too powerful. Sub Rogue was one of the best PvP specs of all time in basically every iteration that it ever existed in. Even to this day, it's still really freaking amazing. And so I have a feeling Reaper will always be one of the best PvP classes, PvP specs you could even say, that you'll ever see in Conquest of Azeroth. It's going to be really freaking good, and as you've been seeing in the background, it is really freaking good. Now, just to give you guys a quick idea of what's going on with some of these other spells before we move on to other specs. So I'll show you guys a couple of these other abilities real quick, and then we'll move on to another spec. Ghostly Weapon, animation-wise, that's what that looks like. You've basically got, you can barely see it with the purple. That's why I felt like that should be changed. But you could see kind of like a snowy, soul-y effect coming from me, right? Soul Spear, though, let's check that out on this deer. Okay, that had no animation, I think. Yeah, it's just literally my dude just insta-killing him with a Soul Spear. Interestingly enough, I see why this doesn't say Soul Infusion. It doesn't say it because he doesn't want it to consume your reaped souls. If you notice, when I use it, it's instant cast now, but it does not consume my souls like a Soul Infusion effect does. Very cool. But then we have Harvest Essence, okay? So I can use this on the mangy wolf. It takes away the souls, and now look, I can use it again. Otherwise, it would have had an 8-second cooldown. Okay, and I got the spider down to low health, so I can show you guys Death Chaser, which requires execute range. So let's see. Okay, dead. It's a ranged execute spell. 1.69 second cast, but instant if you have the soul infusion up. Okay, Corporeal Flay. Let's try that. Oh, that's actually a cool animation. It took a second, but the cow did die. And on the bunny right here, poor bunny, right? I'll show you guys Wraith Blade, which is kind of like the Chaos Bolt melee effect, if you want to put it like that. Look, and it actually puts you in this form, and that's what you saw a lot in those PvP clips, where I would actually use the Wraith Blade, pull somebody into the underworld with me, right? And then I would kill their ass, and that's super fun. Okay, but here it is, guys, Limbo. Oh, it also puts me in this form. In fact, they might want to fix it, making it to where I exit the duel area. But that is so cool, and it healed me as well. Nice, dude. Thank you so much for letting me see that. And there you go. So, okay, as I keep telling you guys, and people get this wrong as well, the numbers are not final. I've heard from a lot of people right now that they consider Reaper to be overpowered, especially the Soul spec. But again, all that stuff will be tinkered with. The real question is, do the talents feel good? Does the design of it feel good? Here's what I can say. The design of this spec is really good. I love every aspect of it. I don't think it's bloated. In fact, actually, it might be a tidge bloated, right? But here's the thing. It's only going to be really bloated as far as they make me take this one Desolate ability, for example. Same thing with the tank. I'm pretty sure this won't be that usable. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, as I look at some of these abilities, they all feel like they have their place. You don't have to take all the actives, by the way. One thing I really like about the Reaper is that they actually did a really good job of having a lot of passive effects. So if you really look at the Reaper talents compared to like Knight of Zoroth at certain points, most of these are actually passives, right? Exactly how they should be. And they're not all like this one that just gives you haste. They're actually pretty cool that have a lot of interesting little aspects to them. So if you don't, for example, want Soul Spear, you probably don't have to take it, and it won't feel as bloated. But, you know, PvP specs, in my opinion, tend to be a little more complex, typically speaking, than PvE specs. So I do think you would expect it to feel a tidge bloated, as I said, because you want more options to do certain things. So as I said, basically, I really enjoy this spec, and outside of doing something different with Desolate right here so that not everybody has to get a spell they don't want, whether that means you need 2 less talents to move on to the next tier, and I think that might be what they do. I think I actually mentioned that like 4 videos ago with a different class, so it seems to be something that happens more often than not. Or they give you a brand new ability right there that everybody would actually want to get their hands on. I don't know, but that's basically the only thing I would do. Now, I want to show you guys the Harvest spec next, because I only played this on stream, and we could play it together a little bit before we move on to the tank spec. Okay, so we're going into Harvest now. Everything in the Reaper tree is basically exactly what you guys saw before, but now we have it to where we get Harvest Reaper here. It allows Reap to strike 3 enemies and not just 1, and causes it to restore an additional 2% max health with a 2-handed weapon, and that's actually super good and strong. I also get Crimson Scythe, the 30-second cooldown that strikes an enemy with a devastating weapon attack, doing 175% weapon damage, stealing health from them, and scaling with my AP, and harvests a soul fragment from the target as well. I get Scythe Rush. You can look at it like a charge. However, you can actually use it anytime anytime you want. There's no cooldown, except it can't be used on the same target more than once every 15 seconds. So you can scythe rush from person to person to person to person to person. You just can't go back to the same guy until 15 seconds has passed. It also heals you for 5% of your max health, which is actually really strong. You can see, like, as a class, this is going to be a good PvP class. Wow, look at this. This is actually a very iconic and thematic talent, but super crazy. It reduces, this is a passive, guys. It reduces all healing you receive permanently by 70%, but it also reduces all damage you receive by 20% and increases all damage you deal by 15%. That's a broken talent, and I think you'd have to take it. Even though you take way less healing, it does 15% more damage in general. That's crazy. Now, I saw this ability, Doom Rend. It consumes a reaped soul, and it does 100% weapon damage based on the target's missing health, and it seemingly heals you for a lot. So I guess we just spend reaped souls on that while in melee range. This one, Dark Rend Scythe, allows Crimson Scythe to cleave 2 additional enemies and apply a bleed effect. That seems quite strong. Now, I got a couple other interesting abilities. Blood Siphon is basically a 40-second cooldown, almost AoE. It's a 4-target attack that steals health and heals me for twice of the amount drained, with a soul infusion effect that increases the damage by 150% and restores an additional 2% of my max health for every target struck. Seems strong. Maybe use it on cooldown. We'll see the damage. Crimson Harvest is another one, though. 1.5 minute cooldown, just massive drain spell. And while active, I take 15% more healing. With soul infusion, it just goes faster. So it's a channeled spell, it seems, or maybe a tick-based dot spell. We'll look at it in a moment. Now, okay, I do have one more ability I'll show you guys. Call. It says I leap forward through the air on a 40-second cooldown, swinging my scythe in an arc, and after a 2-second delay or when I land, I unleash a spinning attack for 150% weapon damage. Let's check this out. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. Oh, that's really strong too. Wow, okay. Now, I'm already feeling like it could get bloated, but so far, so good. And the reason I feel like I can judge bloat pretty well is because I've got a pretty nice, robust key binding system. Like, I can handle a lot on a personal level. But I'm looking at everything, and I had to throw 2 spells over to the side on keybinds that are a little bit less comfortable. That was Doom Rend and Murder to fit in everything else. I am using Dreadwake with this. We'll talk more about that when we tank. But okay, I'm thinking we just do this dungeon with these guys, and we see how it all plays together, right? So this was a dot you guys saw probably in that short clip, the Crimson Heart. It looks like it's just a channeled dot. That's pretty good. Now, it looks like I think I want to reap, desolate, and then use everything else on cooldown, and then go for Shudder Scythe when I have 3 of my reaped souls, because it hits more often if you remember correctly. So you can see that in a moment. Let's make some stuff happen, right? Let's go ahead and do this. That's really cool. So it actually looks like in this spec, the Dreadwake is really slapping. Look at this damage. 269 is not that bad, right? I have this other one that's doing AoE that also heals me. We can Desolate. Let's go ahead and go in there. Dreadwake again. It looks like we have another guy Dreadwaking. So that must mean that he's tanking right now. So let's go on this guy. Boom, 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 boom. I really like this. You know, like, I'm just going to be using different things also to show you guys what it does. Now, one thing I learned is that Doom Rend actually heals for a lot more than the tooltip in the talent section said. So it's actually, look at this. It actually turns out it heals for 358 to 471, and that's a lot. Now, I'm going to be reducing that by a lot, but just in general, that's going to be pretty crazy for self-healing. It's like spamming Victory Rush on yourself as a warrior, you know? That would be really nutty if that was possible. And typically is not. In this class, it actually kind of is. So it seems really strong because when I'm looking at the DPS, I'm like on top right now. I'm one of the higher levels though, to be fair. And remember, that always plays a major part. Let's go ahead and channel that dot. A bunch of dudes are coming. We're going to get all the AoE going. Okay, let's make it happen. So first of all, that AoE on everybody. And then let's go ahead and Crimson Side, Cleave. We can Dreadwake. We can go ahead and Shudder Side because we have 3 Reap Souls. Nice. Let's go on this guy. Interrupt him. Desolate. Reap. Okay, wow. I find it interesting that the only other guy on my level is the guy that's my class. Now, in general, and this is slapping ridiculously hard, dudes. Like, holy crap, this is going to be a great Mythic Plus spec. There's so much AoE. But in general, it feels like the only thing I want to spend my souls on is Shudder Scythe. Because if I look at this damage, right? Like, let's look at Doom Rend damage. It's a 169, so you're not Doom Rending for the damage. So I guess you're going to want to Murder on cooldown? 585, yeah. So you want to Murder on cooldown. I think I did say that earlier too, right? So that does make it feel slightly bloated to me because I have so many abilities I have to use, I feel like. But it could be the case that I don't need some of this, right? So let's just, you know, give it a grain of salt there and say maybe I took every ability because, of course, I want to show it to you guys, and maybe you don't have to. Okay, I changed my binds up a little bit and put Murder on T instead of the long cooldown Cull that I feel like I won't be using too much in the video anyway. That might just make it all feel better. Go for the AoE. Dreadwake. Nice. Shutter Scythe on this guy. It's definitely been nerfed a lot since the last time I used it, because last time I used Shutter Scythe, it's still good. But last time I used it in my very first Reaper video, it was completely busted. And I don't know if they did this, although it does actually feel like they buffed the dungeon mobs. It could be wrong, but I feel like I was seriously dominating all of this. And the last few days, I've literally felt like it's actually been a challenge for once, which I'm never complaining about. Okay, let's kill Turagamon, dude. So far, so good. I do need to get used to that murder. So the murder is eventually going to be way better than it even is, right? Because like I said, it regenerates 10% of your mana. Regenerating 10% of your mana when you're playing a class. Let's heal myself. So let's see if I spam this. See, it's pretty decent healing. But regenerating mana when you're playing a melee hybrid that's supposed to use mana is really good. So I'm assuming eventually most of these spells will have mana costs if they don't have a health cost attached to them or a soul cost attached to them. I feel like that should be the trade-off. Like Reap has a mana cost, and that's fine. Or maybe the mana costs just need to be higher because they seem to have mana costs. It just seems to be irrelevant. If you just stare at my mana bar the entire video, you'll notice it's never at any point relevant. And I do feel like if you wanted to feel good, you actually need people to care about their resources. That's just what I think. Otherwise, what's the point? You might as well make everything have no resource cost and just, you know, don't have one, right? I'm not saying that's how it should be. I'm just saying, you know, it's literally virtually equivalent. Can I actually not die? Oh, I charged over. Oh, God. Oh, there's going to be so much mobility. I'm just thinking about this for PvP. I died. Okay, it doesn't matter. The point is nutty, dude. Wait, can I solo this? Let's see. So I can go for the Rend, Desolate, Rend, Desolate. Go for that healing thing with the Doom Rend, right? Let's go ahead and Crimson Scythe. Yeah, wow. Okay, that's an elite my level. Of course, the damage numbers will be tuned, but it's still fun. We get to see how stuff plays. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but it is an Agi-based spec, it seems. And that's nice. So you have to think about this. I mean, one thing to really keep in mind is, you know, what gear does every class go for and how many of the mail, leather, plate, and cloth specs are there? How many int, Agi, strength, spirit specs are there? Stuff like that. Okay, I think that was a decent showing so far for the harvest spec. Okay, guys, now finally we're on my favorite spec. Literally saved, in my opinion, the best for last, although I admit you guys might not agree because the first two were so sick to begin with, right? But this is the tank spec. It is known as Domination. So we had Harvest, Soul, Domination, and I love this one. So this has the teal aesthetic, you know, that's why my Mog is the way that it is. I think it's gorgeous. We have spells like Dreadwake. We have spells like Requiem. We have spells like Lament, which I have to have a target for, but it's more AoE. And there it is, and I shoot that over at that deer over there. We have a dungeon, so I want to do a dungeon and show you guys what's going down. Hopefully it's a shorter one, to be honest with you, for this first one. And I'll go over some talents and stuff like that, because I've been playing this one the most, and like I said, it is my favorite. Okay, Wailing Caverns, Verdun, the Ever-Living. Let's just go ahead and pull everything. Now check this out for a hot second. The AoE Silence. It's actually pretty good for this, although, oh shit. Oh god. Oh no. Okay, I can actually charge in, get this aggro. Okay, it didn't work perfect, guys. I should not have shadow melded. I was just trying to be a little fancy. Taunt that guy back on. Oh, God, this started off so bad. It's okay. It's okay. We pulled it all back. We pulled it all back. Get that guy on me. Keep going. So the whole point of this really is the Dreadwake, which is that teal conal thing you keep saying. Why did I lose aggro on that? Oh, I forgot. I'm over here wondering what the hell's going on, but there's this ability. Jailer of Souls, which increases my threat by 300%. Reap will restore more health, and it only works with a two-handed weapon. I take reduced damage and do reduced damage, so I need that. Now everything's going to make more sense. So I've got my keybinds perfectly, and I think one thing that really attracted me to this spec is that it doesn't feel bloated in the slightest. It feels really, really good, actually. Everything makes perfect sense for me. So I've got my Dreadwake Requiem ability that we'll go over in a moment, and my Spender of Reap Souls Lament on the top, like Shift, W, E, and R. On the bottom, I've got what are essentially their single target analogs, right? So I've got Murder, which is my single target Reap Soul Spender, and then I've got Shutter Scythe and Reap itself. So it's really easy to keep track of all that when it's so simple. It's still 6 abilities I'm using all the time, which sounds like it would be a lot, but it's just really well designed, and so it doesn't feel like a lot. That's when you know it's genuinely well designed, you know what I mean? Let's silence that guy. Oh, I can't. Let's go in. It had a shorter range than I thought. So I really do love this spec on a deep, deep level. I've got this ability, Dark Deal, that heals me for 50% of my max health, but it reduces all healing I take by 50% for 20 seconds afterwards. That's pretty crazy. I've got this ability that increases my armor and magic resist, but when I use it, I can actually use stealth abilities outside of stealth. So one of them is this one that you guys know about that lets me charge in. So that's actually my only gap closer with this right now, and I have to keep up the Soul-Warden's Resolve to make it happen. I didn't initially realize that Soul-Warden's Resolve had that part at the end that says you can use abilities as if you were an underwalk with it, but when I realized it, as a result of Liquid telling me actually, I thought, wow, this is really, really sick. So I can go in here, pull Lord Serpentis with my AoE, go on this guy, silence that guy, or interrupt him rather, go for a murder, go for a lament, Dread Wake, getting used to all the names is going to be something, go for an AoE silence, love it, Requiem. Right here, boom, it smacks everybody in a big circle around me. It actually scales with my stamina and harvests soul fragments, guys. And not just that, but it actually ends up healing me with talents as well over time. So that's pretty cool. So one big difference you're seeing is that with this one, I feel like I constantly have reaped souls just ready to go at all times. So I want to do more with this real quick before we even go over anything, because I actually just have too much fun playing it. So I'm going to queue again. Okay, it's a long one, though. It's a long one. We'll make it happen. Pull that guy with a murder into a reap, and let's keep going. Okay, this is another really big pull, guys. Hopefully we don't die. Oh, we gained a level. We won't die. Requiem on all these guys. Now, once again, I didn't actually read out Requiem, but it looks like it instantly blasts nearby enemies for spell shadow damage, scaling with stamina, and harvesting soul fragments from all of them. It's a really, really big ability. It's very enjoyable to use. So after a Requiem, I can go for some really big combos, right? Like a massive Shutter Scythe, for example. Or even just automatically getting up the Soul-Warden's Resolve and maybe going for a Soul Tap after that if I have to. Into a Murder or even into a Lament. The Lament I think I use quite often. I'm just using everything basically on CD right now. Number one, because it's flowing so nicely. But number two, because it also lets you guys see what all the abilities do. There might be a maximal rotation with this, but I'll be honest, like it doesn't feel like it matters. Because just playing your class, and I love when the design falls into something like this, but it seems like just playing your class is good enough. Who would have thought? And that's like the best part about a support spec, a tank spec, or a healer spec, is they have a higher chance of you being able to just have fun rather than follow a strict rotation. So when they make that work, it's really, really good, I think. And that's another reason I'm really excited about the support specs in this expansion. Yeah, like the fact of the matter is having support specs means, once again, there are just more avenues for you to relax. And I think a lot of people nowadays, especially, they forget that we're all playing video games. I've mentioned this before. I personally think a huge part of it is that most of the gamers nowadays on MMOs specifically are older. I'm talking in between the ages of 21 and 35 or even 40. And so as a result of that, most of them are just like trying to be the best all the time when they play because they're smarter and they've got that time maybe because they have maybe a little bit more money or they're in college or something like that. So they have more time. And I think a lot of them forget what it was like. And they say, oh, I remember when I was a kid and everything was so fresh and new and I want that feeling. And it's like, well, it's because you were a kid. It's not because it was actually fresh and new. And the feeling was just more often to happen at that time. It was because you were a kid and your mind was different when you were a teenager, you know? But again, like you can still reinvigorate the fun aspect, but a lot of it comes down to design, you know? And so once again, having that support archetype, if you're somebody that wants to relax, you can jump on an Ancestry Barbarian now and just chill. Use your abilities on cooldown the way they should be used, buff your teammates basically on accident. And once again, if you want to play a tank like the one I'm playing, you could do a similar thing. I don't know where these guys are, by the way. Maybe they're pursuing one of those quests and not saying anything in chat. But me and the healer are just killing guys right now. But yeah, as I've said before, I feel like a slight, and I mean slight, benchmark for, you know, if something's genuinely fun or well designed, is when I can talk and talk and talk and commentate while playing it and not have any problems the whole time. Because that does literally mean that I can personally relax as I play. And that means you almost certainly can as well. Alright, charging in, guys. So once again, I only could charge because I had Soul-Warden's Resolve up, and then I can use the Spectre's Stride. So I can do it again over here, by the way. So we could do that. I had no idea about this literally like 10 levels ago until Liquid told me. Because I actually asked him about this talent, Ghastly Form, which is what allows you to do that. It says, after using Spectre Stride, I now get a shield absorbing damage, and when the effect ends, I do more damage that generates more threats. And I asked him very honestly, do you think that we're supposed to be starting fights in stealth? And he said, oh no, actually, Soul-Warden's Resolve lets you use stealth abilities. And I thought, dude, I literally ignored that part of the tooltip because I'm going so fast, you know? So that was huge. Big thanks to him. I talk a lot with the devs, and right now the main dev I talk to is Liquid. And he's a really good guy, I'll be honest with you guys. I think I've said that before. But I think it's important for people to know that, you know, because I feel like a lot of the times nowadays, you see drama exclusively with developers, you know. And before the whole private server custom scene, when it was just like Blizz-like all the time, you saw drama all the time with private server devs. The Shenna and the Krog stuff and stuff like that. And I just like the fact, you know, Blizzard drama and Bobby Kotick and crap like that. I just love the fact that I feel like the Ascension devs are good people. Does that make sense? It's a great feeling, and it's always been a good feeling with them, to be honest with you. I've been very good friends and talked with a lot of them the entire time. Almost anybody you can think of, I've had long conversations with, and we talked about the game and what's going down and stuff like that. So that's always just very enjoyable. I've also learned a lot from them, and they've actually helped me a lot. Like one time, Dutch literally helped me fix my microphone problems when I first moved to this apartment. Like, think about how freaking lucky that is. But yeah, anyway, guys, if I'm honest, at this precise moment, I actually ran out of space on my computer, didn't realize it while I was recording, and lost all the future clips. It wasn't that much, though. I was going over some talents, and we killed Akumai, which, you know, we were already at the end of the dungeon. So there are a couple things I want to show you guys, just some synergies, right? So I really like the way, as I told you guys, that the talents are functioning out. I like the amount of passives. I think it feels good, and one of the reasons I think this class in particular, especially this particular spec of Domination, is doing so well is because Liquid is really exploring the concept of, you know, this one says Dreadlocks allow Dreadwake armor reduction effect to stack 2 times, but the one before it gives Dreadwake a stacking armor reduction. So now it's 3 times to begin with, and then 5 times with this talent. 2 talents that basically affect the same concept, which augments one ability, and it's still fun, and you don't have to have it all if you don't want it. We see similar stuff with Requiem. You know, I can go over here, and Withering Blast allows Requiem to reduce the attack power of all affected enemies based on my stamina for 10 seconds. However, I can also go here to Mod Drinker, and just using Requiem heals me for up to 8% max health over 8 seconds, and that's really fun as well. And there's a lot of that actually going on, which I really like. As I told you guys, you know, there's this where Murder generates threat and hits multiple targets. You don't have to have that if you don't want to, but it's a really cool ability. Shutter Scythe synergy in there, lots of that. More Dreadwake stuff with Soul Taker, and it's a simple one, reducing the cooldown, causing it to harvest a soul fragment if it hits at least 1 enemy. And so I really like this, right? Now, there's a bunch of stuff I could go over. I'll quickly just show you guys, though, some of the animations if you didn't get a perfect or a great look during the dungeons, because I know that there's a lot of clutter and a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, Dreadwake, that's a beautiful one, as you guys can see. But actually, the thumbnail that you saw right now is me using this. And I just really love this ability and this animation. I think it's really good. This is Requiem. It just smacks in a circle around me, right? Let's see. I showed you guys Lament. We know what the crows look like. I can kill this squirrel with the crows. So it's hitting all of the critters, and they all die horrible deaths. Now, I didn't show you this one, but I did use it or mention it. Soul Tap, right? Instantly heal me for 12% max health and increase my healing received. So that's what this looks like. And this is a really good ability as well. You know, we have a lot of ways to spend reaped souls, but also I think with the Domination spec, we had a lot of reaped souls. So I think it just flowed really, really well. There is a taunt, by the way. I rarely have to use it, though. Writhe. It reduces the attack speed of the target you use it on, too, which is actually pretty powerful by 35%. You can see it right here. So that's pretty good. A little bit of a bloody feeling right there. Of course, you know what the Dark Deed does. I also have a Forsaken racial here with Otherworldly Escape. 45-second cooldown. This actually is a little bit better than the Forsaken racial because it removes Fear and Sleep, but it also removes Bleed. Weird, random combination, but that's what you want to see. It also makes you immune. I'll be immune to bleeds. It's a weird amalgamation of the Dwarf racial and the Undead racial. Kind of crazy, honestly. I have this ability, which I don't think I showed you guys, Mark of Terror. It's an instant cast 5-second fear on a 30-second cooldown. It's kind of like a cross between Death Coil, which is a horror effect, and literal fear. So because it's not a horror effect and therefore will break faster, he gave it a longer duration. I actually think it's fair. It's also melee range only, by the way, so look at this. But a melee range fear is something else, you know what I mean? I think it's very balanced. Now, will it be balanced in conjunction with everything else? I actually think it might be. I do think that the Soul spec is probably going to be the strongest one for PvP. But Harvest still has a lot of applicability as well. But there's just like so much going on with the Soul Shocks, right? So much CC, so much control, right? And probably still, as we saw with Soul, a lot of damage. Although the numbers will, of course, be tuned. And I just want to make that super clear because there's no point in min-maxing the numbers right now. The numbers are not wide wildly off right now. But I guess what I'm trying to say is 50, 40, 30, these don't really matter, right? What's going to matter is level 60 in every way. And what we're really going to see when the 60 alpha comes out is people gluing, including myself, their eyes to the DPS charts right here. Right now, I use the DPS charts as a fun thing. Oh, look, there's another class. Or, oh, look, I'm in first place. But it doesn't matter right now. But what's going to matter once again at level 60 is when we get into M+, and you say, oh, why is the tank doing more DPS? That shouldn't be happening. That's really bad. Or, you know, why is this guy doing 15k DPS and the next 4 people in that raid are doing 2, 3, and 6k? Maybe something's way off because everything should be way closer. That's going to be something to think about. But anyway, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. This is the Reaper, one of my favorite classes so far. What I will say is if we're going to categorize things, my favorite melee was Sun Cleric Seraphim. My favorite support, although I've only seen one of them so far, I believe there's another one with the Guardian class, but my favorite support is going to have to be Ancestry Barbarian. I don't see that changing because of the uniqueness of it, but you never know. My favorite tank, and I've had quite a few of those to try, is definitely this one, Domination Reaper. I could see myself, if I wanted a main as a tank, or if I'll have multiple characters, right? It's going to be this guy. He's just really, really badass, strong. There's the parry effect ability I didn't show you guys yet, by the way, but I did use previously in other parts of the game when I was playing by myself. There's 2 to look at. Counter Scythe, increase my parry rating by 50% of my stamina, and my parries do damage to people, so that's pretty cool. Then there's also Soul Shroud. You trade 10% max health for 40% damage reduction, and then there's another talent that increases the duration to 10 seconds, which is kind of like a weird version of pain suppression without the threat reduction. So I think this is really good. I think people are going to really enjoy playing it. And if you ask me, this is actually one of the coolest looking characters that I've literally ever had. But anyway, guys, let's go do the giveaway from the last Koa video and let's see who wins. All right, guys, let's go ahead and pick a winner from the last video. And there we go, Lurian. Finally, I literally remember theory crafting how a blood mage should be in WoW. And yeah, now you can play it. In-game name, Lurieshka. Hope you enjoy Koa, my friend. As always, guys, leave a comment in the comment section below with your in-game name on the League 4 server, and you have a chance of winning Koa access in my next Koa video. But okay, guys, as I said, that's going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like and a subscribe. Major thanks to all the members of my channel, all 250 of you for now because of my stream recently. I love and appreciate all of you guys. Hope to see all of you on the next one as well. But as always, I'm going to repeat myself. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Mcdoubles out.